On a cold February night, a young woman's car is found crashed on a quiet mountain road. Within minutes, she's gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just a trail of strange clues. And a silence that has lasted now 20 years. Was it an escape, an accident, or something more sinister? These questions have left the internet and the world guessing for years. This is the disappearance of Maura Murray, and literally nothing about it makes any sense. Hello everyone, my name is Meg, aka Sleepy Strawberry, and this is my very first YouTube video. I know, I'm so excited. So what I'm going to be doing on this channel is playing some fun little games, and while I play those, I'm going to be chatting with you about a case that's really interesting me at the time, or a case that maybe you might suggest that I cover. There'll be, probably true crime, unsolved cases like this one today, internet mysteries, cults, all that kind of thing. So, the sky's the limit, really. So, without further ado, I will introduce the game that we will be playing today, which is Unpacking. So yeah, basically I'm just going to be playing a cozy game such as this while we chat about a case that I'm really interested in. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I really love talking about different perspectives and theories, and this one has a lot of them. Okay, a lot of the articles and things, they were very conflicted. There wasn't really much just sort of straightforward facts and evidence and things like that, but all of the dates and names and stuff, they are all correct. It's just some of the storyline that people said different things, and it was a bit conflicting, so bear with me while I try and give you every piece of information that I possibly could muster and slam into my brain about this. And let's get into the game. So I've decided to start with this level of unpacking. It's not the first level, it's the second level, I think, but this is the university level. I thought it was very fitting for this case, so that's why I've picked it. There are millions upon millions of articles. There's Reddit forums. Like, people are crazy about this case, which I completely understand, because as soon as I started getting into it, I realized that it's it's huge, basically. While we unpack this room, I'm going to unpack this case. See what I did there? Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to start with who was Maura Murray. Maura? I think it's Maura. Don't mind me if I keep saying it wrong. So she was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm probably going to say a lot of things wrong in this video. Don't mind me. So before that, she actually attended United States Military Academy in West Point. So, she was doing cool things. She was studying chemical engineering there, but she ended up leaving that and then going over to University of Massachusetts to do nursing. So living away from home, she was balancing school, work, and life all on her own, So she was doing it all, She was an impressive person. From what I read, that's what I learned. She was very loved by her family in her hometown. She was very loved by everyone there. Very likable person, very smart. Her family actually described her as someone who preferred to handle things on her own rather than seeking help. She was very close to her father, Fred, um, and she had a long distance relationship with her boyfriend, Billy. So she had a few personal challenges. Her parents divorced when she was quite young, and but despite all of that, she was very focused on her future career. That's basically Maura in a nutshell. I am going to list all of the resources that I used, so you can do some research in your own time if you would like. But now I'm going to move on to the week leading up to her disappearance, which is very interesting. So the week leading up to her disappearance was just filled with very unusual events, events that were described to be very unusual for her character. So on February 5th, she was working. She had a job on campus as like a security person. I think she worked at the security place anyway. I'm not entirely clear with what she did there. But basically, yep, she was working, and she just broke down crying, like she's just bawling. This was a little bit of a conflicting um, event. Resources were kind of a bit funny about what actually happened. But some resources said it occurred shortly after a phone call with her sister, who was named Kathleen. Her supervisor noted that she was unresponsive and she seemed zoned out after this call. Some reports did say that her co-workers asked her what's wrong, and she said she sort of mumbled "my sister" and then nothing else. But that was very conflicting. Some sources said that actually didn't happen, so I was a little bit unclear on that one. But I just thought I would list it here anyways. That following weekend, like the weekend after that happened, her father actually visited her, and they went car shopping because she needed a new car. So she actually ended up borrowing her father's car, and she actually ended up crashing that car. So this is a different crash to the crash that we're leading up to. So she crashed it late at night. She wasn't hurt, but the incident left her upset and shaken, and it may have added to the stress of everything she was already dealing with in her life. On Monday, February the 9th, so this is a few days later. Where can I put this poster? Oh shit, I'm not doing very well here. Okay, so on Monday, February 9th, 2004, so this is a few days later, Maura emailed her professors. She emailed them saying that there was a medical emergency, or she emailed them claiming that there had been a death in the family and that she'd be away for a week. But later, her family ended up saying that there actually was no death in the family, so they didn't know what she was talking about there. But that's what she claimed anyway at the time. She then packed some belongings in a bag. She withdrew $280 from an ATM. She purchased alcohol and left the campus. Her destination is not clear. That was never discovered. But she had searched MapQuest for directions to the Berkshires and Burlington, Vermont. So I'll put up a map of where she was sort of looking to head, or what she seemed like she was heading to from her searches. So yeah, this is all very, very strange of her to do, and obviously she never ended up making it to any destination, well, as far as we know. So yeah, this was the week leading up to her disappearance. Obviously a couple of really strange things happened. people around her kind of just thought that she was going through some sort of, family emergency. She was just going through it. Maura, she's having a time. Okay, so I'm going to probably finish unpacking these last two boxes, and then we can get into the crash. Okay, so I'll see you in just a sec. Okay, so now I am in the bathroom and we are going to get into the actual crash itself. So that evening of February 9th, around 7:30 p.m, a resident in Haverhill, New Hampshire, reported a car accident near her home. The car was Maura's car, found off of Route 112. A local bus driver by the name of Butch Atwood stopped to check on her. He said she seemed shaken but declined help from him. She claimed that she'd called AAA, however, there was no cell reception in the area, so there was no way she could have done that. So police ended up arriving about 15 minutes later. Maura was already gone. Her car was locked, and inside were her belongings. Cute. So inside were her belongings, including the alcohol that she had purchased. There were no footprints leading away from the scene, and search dogs lost her scent shortly after this. Now, we have kind of the base of what happened, so I am going to get into the investigation itself. So the investigation and the evidence of it all, I think, is what brought the most attention to the case, just because it's so bizarre. With my evidence and investigation research, it was really hard to find sources that weren't conflicting with each other. So I'm just going to try my best to explain to you everything that I found. So, in late 2004, a man gave her family a rusty knife, and I believe he handed it to Maura's father, and when he handed him this knife, this rusted knife, he claimed that this was the knife that had killed Maura Murray, and that his brother was the one to have done it. So the knife was stained with a reddish brown colour that resembled to be blood. The man claimed that his brother had killed Maura and buried her remains beneath his home. The knife was presumably tested. This was a bit of a interesting one to research. I couldn't figure out if it was tested or not. I believe that it was, but the results were never disclosed to the public, and for a long time not even to Maura's own family. The man has never actually been publicly identified, but the brother who the man claims had killed Maura actually lived very close to where Maura's crash had occurred. So this was a bit of a hopeful moment for the family. The man claimed that his brother had a history of violence, and he and his girlfriend seemed to have been acting strangely in the aftermath of Maura's disappearance. And the knife was reportedly found inside the glove compartment of his brother's car. So this man has found this knife inside his brother's car, and he claims that my brother has killed Maura Murray, and him and his girlfriend were acting really weird in the weeks after she had disappeared, and they do have a history of violence. So yeah, he was basically framing his own brother for killing Maura Murray. Now, while this evidence seemed like a strong lead for Maura's family, they got really hopeful over this lead. The New Hampshire State Police were not very proactive in following this lead, which is what caused a bit of frustration and outrage from a lot of internet followers of the case, as well as obviously her family, and everyone who was around at the time and following the case closely at the time. After Fred, which is Maura's father, mailed the knife to them, they were left in the dark for several years. So they didn't hear anything back from the police for several years after Fred had actually had to take it upon himself to mail the knife to them, because no one was proactive to come and collect it, or anything like that. Um, so they were only told that the knife was tested, and nothing else. So they was just said, yep, the knife was tested. They didn't say what were the results, or anything of that sort. The man who gave the knife to Fred, who was framing his brother, has reportedly passed away since then. Members of the man's family accused him of making up the story to obtain a reward, citing an apparent history of drug use. So his family thinks he's trying to point the finger at his brother, say that he did it, so that he can get some sort of reward for solving the case, because apparently this man did have a history of using drugs. So several days after the weapon was handed over by the man to Maura's father, the brother actually took it upon himself to scrap his car. So obviously that made him look a lot more suspicious as well. So this was looking very, very promising for Maura's family, as you can probably imagine. Maura's sister Julie says that her family asked the man's brother if they could search his home, since his brother claims that Maura was buried underneath his house. But permission was never granted to them. So he is looking very, very shady, because why not allow someone to search your house if you have nothing to hide? I certainly think I would rather someone search through my entire home. I know it's a bit, funky with the privacy and everything, but I would much rather someone search my entire house than think that I murdered someone if I didn't actually do that. So nothing really came of that lead, unfortunately. So years later, in 2019, after the property of the brother's property was sold, the new homeowners actually allowed Fred and the family to search the property with cadaver dogs. Okay, so now I'm going to, obviously I've put some things in the wrong places, so I'm just going to be going through and finding all of those while I finish up discussing the evidence and the investigation. The canines alerted strongly to the scent of decomposed remains in a closet in the basement of the home. Investigators took some items from the home into evidence, including a sample from the carpet inside of the closet. The owners of the property then granted state police and the FBI to search the basement, but unfortunately no remains were ever found from this home. So as you can see, I have finished the level. Now I'm just going to discuss with you a little bit about theories and things like that. So I did just want to put in this little quote that I found from Associate Attorney General Jeffrey Strelzin. I hope I'm saying that right. I just thought it was an interesting quote after they searched the home. So what he said was, what happened today is a team of over a dozen agents and detectives went into that basement. They cut that area, removed the concrete, and then searched several feet down and covered the area and beyond where that disturbed ground had been. and they located absolutely nothing other than a small piece of what looks to be potentially pottery or maybe a piece of old piping. So Fred relayed his disappointment to the media as well after this. He insisted that he believed he was on the verge of solving his daughter's case. He said, "This one hurts because I thought we finally had it." He said, "This one is worse than the other false alarms or dead ends." So obviously Maura's family is feeling devastated that this lead did not amount to anything. I did also read that there was a vehicle analysis of Maura's car and the crash site. The analysis suggested the damage to Maura's car didn't match a collision with a tree, sort of trying to say that she may not have actually crashed into a tree. Reddit users in the r/Maura Murray subreddit were very, very unsatisfied with this report, as I read. Apparently it was very inconclusive, very kind of blasé, because they weren't 100% sure of all the other details of what had happened. Redditors believe that that led them to not be able to come to a proper conclusion with that vehicle analysis. So now I'm just going to go through a couple of theories, because they are very interesting and I would love to hear which ones you agree with, or maybe you have a completely different theory. I would love to know. So, basically, this case has had major coverage online. Internet users are obsessed with trying to solve this case, especially on Reddit. Internet true crime sleuths became obsessed with the case, and there are a number of different theories on what happened to Maura that night. So, one theory is that she simply just wandered into the woods. Some people believe that she just wandered off in the woods on her own after she crashed her car, and she just ended up succumbing to the elements. However, extensive searches yielded no evidence, so that it's possible. But in my opinion, it's highly unlikely, because reports did say that there was no foot trail leading away from the car. So I don't believe maybe that's what happened. I don't think it's likely that she just wandered off from her car and ended up passing away in the woods somewhere. They did do extensive searches of those, but it's possible. Her family, especially her sister Julie, believed that she was picked up by someone after she crashed, and she was met with some sort of foul play. Julie actually stated, "The fact that her body has never been found leads me to believe she took a ride with someone from the scene of the crash and was met with foul play." This theory is unfortunately a little bit more likely. Her belongings still being in the car would be a good indicator that foul play was involved, and Maura did not leave the vehicle on her own accord. So that is a theory that is a little bit more wider believed to have happened, being because, yeah, her belongings were all there. Some suggest that Maura wanted to start a new life and she just disappeared on her own. So she's taken off and disappeared, and she's living somewhere happy as Larry. But her packed belongings and the absence of any confirmed sightings do make this unlikely, because usually when someone does disappear and move somewhere else, start a new life, eventually, there are sightings. People can change their appearance, and because this case is so worldwide, it might be more unlikely that she would just disappear and never speak to any of her family ever again. But again, it could have happened. We don't know. We don't know what happened to her, and I'm not sure if we ever will. So, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and watching me put everything in the wrong place in Unpacking. I had a lot of fun playing it. I really like that game. It's so simple yet so fun. Um, I'd really love to hear what you think about this case. So drop a comment and I'd love to talk about it with you. Do you believe that she left on her own? Was it something more sinister than this, but maybe was she taken? I'm so torn on this one. I really didn't come to a conclusion of what my opinion is on this case. It's just so massive, and I would really encourage you to do your own research as well. I'll drop all of my links in the description of all the resources that I used. It's a really, really interesting read. So if you do want to do some reading, I'll drop all of the articles that I used. There's also just a lot of really interesting YouTube videos on this case as well that might go a little bit more in depth that I did. This case was so huge and it was very, very difficult to narrow it down into one script and one video for my very first video. But I hope that I did it justice. Yeah, I'd really love to know what you think about it. It's a horrible, devastating case. If you do enjoy true crime, cults, internet mysteries, anything of that sort, paired with a cute little game like this one that I did today, please do like and subscribe. I'm going to be posting once a week, each video similar to this one, a different case paired with a little cozy game. And if you do want to chat more about true crime or games, or just hang out with some like-minded people that are interested in the same things that we are, you're welcome to join my Discord. I will put the link in the description. I'm trying to build a bit of a community of people that like true crime and gaming and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess I'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!